come and share their journey with you. So today, all right, so this morning we have with us Hari, who is the founder of Zoptiks, and he is going to share with us his journey. And you'll have a time where you'll be able to ask him some questions as well. So Hari, sorry, welcome.
Yeah, Amatolo, thank you. Thank you for letting me be here, and hey everyone. So my name's Hari. I'm the founder of Zoptiks, but I don't really want to be treated as like a guest speaker here. I think it's more of a group conversation. I'll introduce myself, say what I do, what my journey has been so far, and then you can just like, bounce ideas off of me and we can just chat. So I actually grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I went to Ohio State for school and I was a biology major. Didn't study much of IT there, but around junior, senior year, I figured, hey, I wanted to get into tech more than medicine or any other thing. And so what I did was I got a certification in QA testing. So I was just an ISTQB QA tester. It's about $100 to get a certification, read the book, self-studied it, and got my first gig working with the government with an Air Force contract. Fast forward about a year into that, I was kind of picking up things just because I was putting energy into the projects that I was working at, picking up. And when you're in an environment like a company that you're working with, you're exposed to a lot of different things because you're just part of the team, right? So in 2017, I was at the Columbus Zoo and I got lost at the zoo. And so I couldn't find a map. And I thought, hey, why can't we have a map in this zoo? And so I found a problem, right? We need zoo maps, and our original concept was a centralized zoo map app. So the concept was to take all the zoos in the world, take their maps, put it into one app, and have the digital version of it. So it would save paper, save time, save me from getting lost in the zoo. I went and raised money for it, about $50,000 just from various sources. And built out a product. Remember this, I was just a QA tester at this time and I didn't really have the skills to build out the platform. And so when we contracted out the team, we blew through that money fast, but couldn't find product market fit. And, so in 2018, I got a job working as a data conversion consultant for cops. I would take, massive amounts of old data like jail records, tickets, 911 call center calls, and convert that into the new system that cops would be sold to. And that was a lot of SQL work and just, conversion. We call it ETL in the industry. And I actually converted the ZooMap concept to an enterprise system. So I would just go to zoo and sell it to them individually and say, hey, Columbus Zoo, hey, Brooklyn Park, or what is it, Park? Central Park Zoo. They're not a client, but I was just saying. But we will make you a digital map. Would you be open to something like this? And with that comes the server management, the analytics, the actual app itself. And fast forward to 2020, and I saw a loss in revenue, right? About 80% of our clients closed down because of COVID. And they're like, all right, we don't need your zoo maps anymore. We don't even have people coming to the zoo. So I pivoted and I was having a conversation with the Philadelphia Zoo, and they were like, we're about to lose $2 million in field trip revenue just from schools coming in and everything. I was like, can I make you a virtual field trip? And so that started off where we are today. And now we make 40 virtual field trips with augmented reality, VR. We have our own website, and we have a lot of students that actually go through it's kind of like a glorified course per se. Now, throughout this entire journey, you might have noticed that I didn't actually go to school for computer science, right? Like a lot of what I learned was through YouTube, was through Udemy courses, was through actually just working in the field. And that's, you'd be surprised how much you actually learn from various other sources when you go out and search for them. And, that's what I'm here about. If you guys have any questions, I'm not sure if there's guidance. I understand you guys are all from various backgrounds, kind of similar to me, and are looking to get into tech. Zoptiks is actually backed by Amazon Web Services. So that's actually how I met Omotolo at a conference last month. So, we're backed by Amazon. We actually run everything on Amazon, cloud services wise, and we actually are, pretty deep into the ecosystem with all of their various more services that you would expect, whether it be EC2, which is just their basic, servers, whether it be Lightsail, which is their prepaid packages, whether it's S3, which is their storage systems, Glacier, which is their long-term storage systems, Ground Station, which is their satellites. I have a pretty good understanding about various sectors of those. If you guys have questions about how to utilize them or how they're even being used, I can kind of help provide feedback.
Yes, thank you, Hadi. So I'll start off with the first question and then we'll open it up to the students. So Hadi, can you tell us, you said you came from a non-traditional IT background. Can you share how difficult or maybe how easy it was for you learning IT, getting that first SQL certification, entering the industry, or just getting that?
Yeah, so we are children of video games. Most of the people I see on the screen right now, you guys have grown up at least like an N64, PlayStation 1, Xbox, you've seen the games come up, right? So back in 2008, 2009, my big game was Diablo 2. I'm not sure if you know about that, but I was a big Diablo 2 guy. I'd had my sorceress and I was pretty deep into it, just high schooler, middle schooler, Hari doing it, right? And the game's a grind after a little bit. So my first project was actually botting it. I had this Windows 7 back in the day, Acer laptop, nothing special, right? But I botted the entire game because I didn't want to actually play it to get the gear. Nowadays, the games are too complex to actually play or to bot because there's so much graphics and protection and everything. But back then it was just 2D things. And that was my first reason to, right? My first entryway into technology was actually video games and just computers and understanding that. But then it was hey, what is my purpose? What am I trying to achieve? For me, it was to bot this game that I was, I really like to play. And finding out how to do that. I didn't know how to code back then. So it was going to see, digging through the forums and reaching out to people. And I think people are the biggest thing. So when you fast forward, about 8-9 years after that, and I was in college, and I wanted to get into IT, QA was my very first way into it. QA is actually pretty simple. It's just quality check, right? You're saying, hey, if you guys are on Zoom, is my picture showing up? And that's a check that you have to do. And you can expand beyond that. So that frame that we just said, there's multiple steps to it. So you have to write the test case, you have to validate the test case, and then you actually have to go perform it. And then you have to use the tool, whether it be MTM or Selenium or something, to actually manage all of that. So when you go through that, you can then upgrade to automated QA testing. So that's where you use a little bit of code to manually actually say, hey, these are the functions that you need. And so the first way to show a company that I could do the work that I said that I wanted to do was to get a certification. And so the ISTQB is the International Standards Testing Quality something, right? But it was about $100. It's the verified way that governments and government contractors actually use to say, hey, you're actually certified. Because in the tech world, degrees aren't that big of a deal. It's actually about the certifications to show that you can do it. And even if you're going into the dev route, where you're a software developer, if you can code really well and you know your theoretical kind of ways to make things happen, you don't even need certifications because I've seen people do that. And then once you're inside of a company, every company has needs. And so if you're be able to communicate, if you're able to talk and you're kind of a people person, they'll probably give you a little bit of BA work, which is business analysis. So that's kind of more of like, hey, figuring out what the requirements of a project are and understanding what that is. And when you're in the industry and you're in the company, they'll probably be like, hey, Hari, and at least that's what they did for me. Hey, Hari, could you go get an ECBA certificate, which is the entry level to business analysis? And that was another, the company paid for it, but they said, this looks good on your resume. I still use it today. And I used it when I got my data conversion job as well. But it's about talking to the right people, putting yourself in the position to be open to something like that. So going to the forums, going on LinkedIn is a big one. There's apps. Blind it's a newer age kind of like job search kind of thing. And connecting to people, people, if you respectfully approach people, they will give you a shot, and you have to be persistent about it if they don't respond. So, it's like baseball, you got to give it 3 shots. And if you strike out, then you strike out. But if you don't, you never know where something leads. And that's what's happened throughout my life, throughout my past, 5-6 years in the workforce. Now with the data conversion job, how I actually obtained it, because I was not actually a certified SQL developer before I got the data conversion job. And a lot of companies, right, this is a very hot time in the market for roles. So they will take a risk on you if you can show that you have good work ethic, you're willing to actually, put in the work, learn. Every single position in the world has a training period, whether it's 2 months to 6 months even. Like that was the expectation for new candidates when we're bringing them in at the ETL job. It was about 6 months onboarding, but it would be onboarding with real projects. So we would actually go talk to cops, talk to 911 call centers, talk to chiefs of police, and say, hey, what's the expectation of it? And when you're in the field and you actually get your hands dirty and you're able to get that foot in the door, then everything else opens up, and you just have to be present, and you have to put the time in and effort. And the more time and effort and networking you do at the earlier stage, the bigger your network grows. And network is everything when you're trying to climb the corporate ladder, especially in tech companies. There's going to be politics. There's going to be competition, right? Everyone's after the bag. But once it's not going to be easy. You'll see I know you guys are on TikTok, but on TikTok, you'll see these tech people say, hey, I'm getting paid 6.5 figures for, coding 5 to 8 hours a day. And they probably are at like Netflix, but they're also probably have 20 years under their belt. And, like they probably know what they want to do. So let me ask you a question. If you were to get your dream job, let's say, level 6 Amazon engineer, you're getting paid $500,000 a year, do you think you'd actually be able to handle something like that mentally, physically, and with the politics and everything? No, like most people, they have to work their way up, and that's why it's a career, right? If you wanted a job and a career is two different things. A job is something that'll feed you and put money in your pocket, but a career is something that you'll build on for a decade. And I'm not saying you can't switch careers or industries or fields, but it's something more long-term than just a job. And so that all starts with here. OBT, it's a workforce development thing, so they'll probably connect you with valuable resources to at least get you started, right? Like when you're running a marathon, you got to get started, and running anything, right? Like if you that first step out of the race is the biggest thing, and you just have to keep a steady pace. Yeah, I've been rambling, so I don't know if anything is actually resonating with you guys, but yeah, that's my elaborate explanation, Omotolo, about how we started.
Yeah, no, Hardy, that was really good information. Like you touched upon a lot of things that we try to teach in our growth mindset and our employment workshops. So thank you so much. I definitely just reiterating a lot of things that we teach in this program. So definitely open it up to the students here. So go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your questions.
All right, really burning question. It's a little silly, so don't hesitate to just pass by it really quickly. But what's the story of when I was looking through your website, what's the story behind the annoying fly on the screen?
The fly. So as I mentioned before, we come from the zoo world, but our platform is very special needs friendly, and we find that when people are able to, kids specifically, they're able to isolate and put the fly outside of the information that they're consuming, then they actually understand what they're consuming better because their mind is focused. It's like a trigger to focus. It's also a fun little thing that lets us stand out, and literally everybody asks about it. And it's like, hey, this is the website on the fly. People will be like, hey, check out this website. It has a fly on it. And have you tried catching it, Victor?
Not particularly. I just flicked it away.
It fly away. So it's like a little mini game. Our whole thing is about being like an immersive, interactive kind of thing, like virtual field trips. And it's kind of a subtle way to add a little bit of an Easter egg. Because you see tons of websites, right? And there are lots of pictures, text, not very good web design. But that's the part of, if you're going to create something. I am in the startup world. Startup world is very different than corporate world, but I've been in both. In corporate world, they just want to funnel you in and take your money and make that sale, right? So when you're trying to stand apart, you kind of have to add a little bit of spice into your life, into whatever you're working on. So I'd recommend it. Just little things like that. People will pick up on it, just like Victor did, and they'll keep you in. It'll be in the back of their head. So even in fun, like a project, right? Like if you do a really good job on a project and you're just very good, like at customer service, even it's a very basic thing. But if a client recommends you and gives you a stellar review, who's going to be on the first of the list when you get a promotion for the job that you're in. You are, because you did a little bit above and beyond, and if people don't remember what you do for them, they remember how you make them feel. So yeah, another elaborate explanation, but thank you for asking that, Victor.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Kelia. I don't know, some people get it a little wrong sometimes.
Okay.
But I had one of the questions I had for you is that you said something that kind of resonated with me. You said that there's a difference between a job and a career, and when you have a career, sometimes stuff gets a little difficult, and it's not going to be easy. So my question for you was, what was one of the difficulties you faced? Because you said that you didn't originally go to school for tech. You went for biology, I believe it was.
Yep. Yeah. So take this with a grain of salt, right? So I believe hardness or difficulty is either you know how to do something or you don't know how to do something, right? If you know how to do something, it's not that hard. You just have to go do it, and you'll kind of figure it out. But and then at that point, it's just easy. But if you don't know how to do something, then you actually have to understand why you don't know how to do it, what's the problems with it, and there's elaborate steps to it. But everything that we do is a journey. So, for example, let's start with my development journey. Like, as I said before, I was in biology and I was a QA tester, but I wanted to build this Zoom app. That first prototype / version of the app, it's nowhere. It's stored in my laptop somewhere, but it's nothing. It was this Microsoft Xamarin app. It was very expensive to maintain, and it was not as good. And in 2018, when I was rebuilding the entire Zoom app concept, I had to build it myself. So one of the biggest things was, hey, how do I learn how to use PHP, JavaScript, Python? How do I actually build out my own websites and manage the infrastructure using cloud, making it cost effective? And the biggest thing was YouTube. YouTube and docs of tools, docs, and resources like YouTube are going to be the biggest 3 ways that you'll learn outside of outside of your work, but also inside of your work. Most of the developers these days, they're actually spending about like 25 to 33% of their time writing code. The other time is figuring out how to work with other APIs and like new ways to write the algorithm and dev docs even. So when these developers are writing docs, whether it's on GitHub or on the product's docs, they're actually telling you how that product is built, how their product should be used. And when you understand that, you can just take those ideas. Like they're just concepts, right? You don't have to build out all your algorithms on your own. Like I don't think I've ever written one of my own algorithms. Like there's just so many that you don't need. And there's tons of open source code out there that you can leverage. And that's the beautiful thing about tech, it's open. Like there are, private code repositories, and if you're working for Microsoft, then they're going to make you write your own C# code for everything because that's what they have to do. But you can leverage other people's resources and learn from how they do it. And most of the times, if they're sharing it, they're confident enough in their code to share it. That means they're probably good enough to actually put it out there, right? And three, they want feedback, and the whole concept of Git or GitHub or GitLab or whatever you guys want to use is collaborative development. And anywhere you go, any team that you want, whether you're in cloud management, as Omoto mentioned, whether you're working with DevOps teams, whether you're working with development teams, it's a team effort. There's going to be lots of players, lots of egos, lots of personalities, and you have to work with that. And that's, when you're in tech, you probably imagine like the IT guys, right? And yeah, there'll be IT guys, but they're still people. They still need social connections. They still need to work with people to make things happen and progress. And so that's been a big difficulty of mine. So having to actually learn everything myself. Sometimes it's learning how to work with other teams and other companies and other tools, and even sales. I'm not a natural born seller. It takes time to be able to develop communication skills and understand that sales isn't about listing out your features and your pricing. It's actually about connecting with the customer, understanding what their problem is, if your product or solution is even a viable reason for them to pay for something like that. And that's what business is, right? Like back in the day, we would ship spices from like India. I'm ethnically from India, but I'm like from North Carolina, right? So India, they would ship spices all around the world. That's a business. It's still a business. It's called cargo. But when you think about that, there's so many players that go into that, and there's so many levels to the business that that make that up. And you have to kind of understand not only your portion, but like the 2 to 3 different other accompanying sides to it.
Thank you.
I just want to ask if you, oh, hi, my name is Angie. First.
Hey,
So I just want to ask you if there was anything that you knew now that you would, go back in time and tell yourself when you were just starting out. Is there any advice you would give to yourself?
oh, so many, right? I was an amateur back then. Honestly, I had an idea and I was lost at the zoo and I was just walking around. But honestly, you have to really be passionate about what you want to do. If you're not passionate about what it is that you're working on, even if it's a career, if your industry, let's talk about fintech. I know it's a little bit of a pivot, but fintech, I think, is the most boring thing in the world. All they do is take cuts out of money when they in transactions, right? And I know there's cryptocurrencies and blockchain coming up, but in essence, all the companies are the same. They help you process money, move money from one place to another. They take a cut out of it. So you have to kind of really look at who you are as a person, and you'll see little hints throughout your life that you find enjoyable. It's very kind of a self-reflective kind of thing. You have to understand, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm all about. And this is what I enjoy doing. Even if it gets super hard some days, I will be able to, have the grit or determination to wake up and still show up for it. Now, I'm not saying you have to show up every single day to work and do that, right? I'm a big proponent of actually taking sabbaticals and taking time off and kind of rejuvenating yourself. But if you're not intrinsically motivated with the company's beliefs, with where they're trying to do, what their mission is, how they're making money, then you're not intrinsically motivated to even better the company or even yourself. Like, there's no reason to provide more or do beyond what can be done, or should baseline be done, right? And so that's a big thing. Just kind of the grit of it is a big thing. The second thing is make more mistakes faster. Honestly, imagine the kind of bugs that Victor's bug mentioned. It's also kind of a memento to them, like the thousands of bugs that I have in the code. No software is ever going to be bug free. I mean, most of the startups' codes and apps, they're like they're like a house of cards, I would say it. You know, they will, unless it's Netflix. Netflix is the one thing that actually breaks their house of cards consistently to make it fixed. But a lot of these software and apps that you use, they're finicky little things. Even our app, it goes down about 1 to 2% of the day. Like, there's something breaks. Some kid is working on some augmented reality thing with some odd Android device or something, and it's very hard to maintain compatibility with everything, right? But that's okay. That's completely fine. That's part of the service. And so when you're faced with challenges, you just kind of have to either find out the solution, ask for it, Google it. Google is your best friend. Stack Overflow is your best friend. And kind of just stick with it. And if you need the time, take the time off, because burnout is such a big, real thing. And if you dive too deep into burnout, there's going to be a point where it's like, hey, is this even worth it for me? And then you might even start on a new career, and that might be fine as well. Right? Like, you might even thrive in that new career. But you want to give a fair shot to the one that you chose in the first place. And tech is a good place to be, guys. Tech is the future of the world. We're not going to go back and have wheelbarrows, right? Like, we're always going to have technological innovation. So
Thank you.
yep.
Sorry, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I've actually wanted to ask, it kind of stuck on me with he being an advocate of being able to restore yourself. I actually want to know, as a person who's always applied IT, who always picks up a phone and thinks of work, I want to know what advice can you give to someone who's been too focused on work, or they kind of just can't let it go. Their drive is way too, how do you unwind? How do you get away from technology, since it is the future? It's kind of everywhere, so it's really hard to avoid it.
Yeah, great question, Zori. So that's actually something I struggle with as well. Like, I'm personally addicted to TikTok, especially after COVID. Like, I will scroll through that. I'm probably following like 2,000 or 3,000 people on it, just because it's like, oh, you're cool, I'll follow you, right? But the thing about how I unwind is I actually just disassociate myself with the environment. I know, some of the guys here, you guys probably watch Twitch streams, right? And it's like kind of like a community. You just hear them talking in the background, and you'll probably just work. And I do that too, working from home, it's very easy to kind of get lost in your digital ecosystem. But sometimes you just need to get out of your room, just stand up. If you have a standing desk, I find that to be very helpful. But just stand up, walk, do your push-ups. I do have like push-ups, and I have like a pull-up bar, and I just do them all day long. Maintain your body, like work out, take a shower. Showers are great for like kind of like interrupting your mental state and kind of like rejuvenating you. And that's huge. You don't need to be in front of a computer to solve problems. Your mind is working consistently. Your mind is your biggest tool, especially in tech. And so when a lot of the problems that you're facing, you you kind of theorize the solution in your mind before you're actually implementing it. So when you're on a walk, when you're riding your bike, when you're, out at a restaurant grabbing a drink with your friends or wherever, your mind's still working in the subconscious. And sometimes your mind has to go to sleep to understand how to fix the problem. Most of your solutions to your problems don't come the same day or the next hour. Sometimes they do, don't get me wrong. Sometimes with experience and having gone through a problem, you'll instantly know the solution and say, hey, this is how we fix it. Ta-da-da, there we go, right? But sometimes when it's a new problem, you got to sleep on it. You got to let your mind do the work. You got to let things unfold. You need to understand, hey, maybe I can ask this person for help. Maybe I can go here to, more than just Google it, because sometimes Google won't have your solutions, right? And it might be something, sometimes it's a problem you introduce. That's what a lot of bugs are. They're problems that you coded in before. You might have added you might have just commented out a class or a variable or something before and say, hey, now I need to go fix this. I don't know why it's not working. Well, it's probably because you said you commented it out. So there's a lot of things that go wrong in the world, right? That's why we're humans and that's why we're needed, right? If not, AI would just fix it all. But you just kind of just have to go with the flow is what I'd say, but also disassociate. Going back to the core question of what Zori was asking, I personally like to actually remove myself from the premise. So, if you guys see here, I got like a bunch of screens in the laptop, right? I will literally leave the space, literally leave it, and I just go somewhere else. And take a walk, just get yourself out of that environment because it's not healthy. Staring at a blue screen for 18 hours a day and then another phone. And I'm sure you guys, scroll on your phone before going to bed. We're looking at hours and hours and hours of blue screen a day, and it's not healthy for us. But, so we gotta have to actively disengage, especially when you're working in tech and you're kind of forced to be in front of the screen. So.
Thank
I have
you.
a question.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Javier. You say you were a QA engineer, right? SQA or a QA? Like what routes do you take to become a QA engineer?
Yeah, so I was a junior slash senior in college, and I just wanted to get into QA. It's a very broad kind of field, right? There's load testing, there's like automated, and there's kind of different aspects of QA nowadays. But yes, I was just a software QA engineer, and I just started with manual. Manual testing is just like, hey, if you were a user pretending you're using Zoom, it's just testing out all the features and seeing if they function, but also writing those test cases. And it's a lot of actually like kind of writing and theorizing how these test processes work. And that kind of also goes with BA. The BA is the one who actually finds like the requirements and puts all the workflows together. So that's what in the entry level, that's all they need really. And my first job, it wasn't paying a lot. It was like 30K a year. So it's not like a high paying job, right? But it's probably more of an internship than an actual job. But hey, it's a foot in the door, right? And to be honest, like you guys are young people, so you can live on 30K a year. Maybe not in New York, actually. New York will probably pay you higher. But I was in Columbus, Ohio. And so, very low cost of living. I was a college kid, so I already knew how to live on nothing pretty much. And so, 30K was actually a lot. I was like, oh, wow, this is actually money in my pocket more than money going to school and tuition. So, but it takes time, they gave me a pay raise after like a year. And that went up to 45K, but I was also taking on more responsibilities. I was actually like a BA slash QA. And in modern day times, most of the QAs are that kind of BA slash QA, where you're working with people, where you're writing a lot of requirements, where you're talking to customers and understanding what it is that they actually need. You probably have a project manager he's probably the project manager, he or she, whoever they come, is probably going to be your very first guide. They're going to be like, hey, this is what we can improve on. You're probably not going to be just dropped into a team. You're probably going to have 2 to 3 other BAs and QAs that are actually more experienced than you. And those are the people that you kind of need to latch onto and, show them that you're willing to do the work, because there's a lot of grunt work. be the guy that does the grunt work. You know, especially in the first few years, they'll first of all, they'll love you for it. They'll remember you for it because they don't have to spend 1 or 2 hours doing grunt work. But grunt work is where you actually put your reps in. When you put your reps in, that's when you actually learn. You don't actually just read something and take a test like I did for the QA thing and actually understand how QA works. It's very rare that that happens. You have to put your reps in doing something, and if it's a real world project, even better. But there's opportunity for that now. You know, the tech, especially, there's tons of opportunities to break into tech and, you know, put that grunt work in. And, you know, time will tell. You know, like while you're putting that grunt work in, people will see that you're showing up. People will recognize, and if you put yourself forward and say, hey, I want this opportunity, I want this sale, I want this extra work, it'll pay off. You know, because it's all about energy, right? Like, I don't want to get into the whole energy theory about it, but put yourself forward, kind of just put that effort in, and I think, Javier, you know, you'll definitely see some results. You know,
Did
hopefully
you
that
get it helped? Did you get just like, did you get any certifications, or you were just that was just like a regular job to you?
No, I had to get the certifications first, especially with the government contracting world. You need to show somehow that you are capable, that you have the skills, right? And so a lot of times it used to be that a degree would do that. Like a computer science degree was necessary even to get a QA job. But now with certifications, and tech moves so fast, you know, like tech itself evolves very fast in a way. So when you even have like the entry level one, so the entry level one I got was an ISTQB one. You know, they probably have 5 or 6 different levels, but I got the entry one. That's all I've actually ever needed for the past 5 or 6 years for the jobs, because it shows that, hey, you understand the core fundamentals, and then it's the tools. So for QA, there's MTM, which is Microsoft Test Manager. A lot of government contractors will use that one. There's Selenium, there's Jenkins. There's these tools that companies use that are actually more important than the actual like foundational concepts. Like the foundational concepts should already be there if you're actually going to get paid for a job. It's how you're using tools, and if you can pick up a tool really quick, then that tool is how they actually get the work done. So, you know, Selenium is an open source tool. It's great. MTM, if you can use these tools, then you get yourself the heads up. So for example, when I'm writing a resume, when I'm applying for jobs or when I'm reviewing them, I actually prefer to look at the tools that people have used, because that shows that they actually understand the foundational, you know, code bases behind it, how to use this tool, how it actually works. And when you can use a shovel to dig for gold, that means you know how to find the gold. You know how to use the shovel. So it's the shovel that's the important part nowadays, more than the actual algorithms and the foundational knowledge. That should just be there. You should already know how to dig with the shovel, no matter what kind of shovel I give you, if that makes sense. I know it's a little bit theoretical, but
thank you. That's all.
Yeah, happy to help.
Because I just wanted to be right now I'm en route to thinking that I could become a SQA engineer, which is software quality assurance engineer for AWS. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it doesn't need to be AWS, right? You can go to Microsoft and Azure, you can go to Google Cloud. The goal is, it doesn't matter what you're digging for. You should know your tool well enough that whatever the goal is the same, because that's what tech is back in. It all comes down to foundational levels. So when you have the core foundations down, doesn't matter what cloud system, they're all servers in a big server farm. You know, unless it's like a very specific thing, like augmented reality developments, or a very like niche thing that you're trying to work on, then it doesn't really matter what brand your shovel looks like, if that makes sense. I know I keep coming back to the digging to gold shovel thing, but it just kind of. So.
He's trying to say, like, if you know how to use a programming language, like you master it or you learn how to use it, you pretty much you have the proper mindset and tools for the job.
Absolutely. For me, people will hate on PHP because it's like from the 90s, but what most people don't realize is like 75% of the internet runs on PHP. And it's an old language, people don't like it, but you know what? Facebook is built on PHP, and it still is. Now they use this thing called Rust, which they created themselves, but Rust is based off of PHP. And so if a company like Facebook can take this super old language and say, hey, I'm going to build literally the world's biggest social network and still manage, I don't know, probably billions of users, right? And they can do that, then the concept isn't much different. It's still programming language. It's still a tool. It's still a shovel to get to the end goal. So some companies, they want to use specific programming languages, and that's fine. For example, game development. I know some of you guys and gals might be interested in going into video game development. You know why they use C++? It's probably because it's the sharpest and fastest executing language out there. And C++ has been around since, who knows, forever, right? And now there's Go. It's like another fancy new language. But you know why game companies don't use Go? It's like, it's so new. People don't really know how to, actually build games with it. So they just use C++ because that's what the industry wants. So if I were to say 2 or 3 programming languages that would really help you get a development job, even a QA job, really, is Python. Python is so flexible. You'll find lots of data jobs with that. JavaScript is not just your front end anymore. There's also back end stuff with that, and PHP. And like C# is also another thing. But like PHP, there's a lot of companies, smaller companies, that just need help with their website. Just building out like a WordPress website. WordPress is an open source tool, another shovel to get to the goal of like making a website. And millions, WordPress has the biggest community that you can learn from. And there's tons and tons of developers out there, and they're all employed. Why? Because that's what maintains people's websites. So yeah, learn how to use the shovel. Shovels are all shovels in some way. And eventually you can use whatever brand of shovel to find your gold. And a lot of times, the companies, AWS, Microsoft, whoever, is already a company. They're making money somehow, right? So they already have a gold. You just need to go be a gold miner for them for a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'll pivot away from the gold miner reference from now on. So I'll find something new.
So I have to jump off in just a minute here, but first off, Hari, my name's Ryan. I'm the program director. I just want to thank you for taking your time with us. We really appreciate your insight. And, in particular, I think, and you've touched on this a little bit, but, just being in an industry where you're from a non-traditional background, in particular, and I think that this speaks to the experience of our participants, is like, you may know what your goal is, like what you're working towards, but that in between can be really murky and confusing. And sometimes I think it takes a bit of a leap of faith even just to take that next step, because you don't really know if it's leading to where you want to go. So I guess my question for you is sort of, how did you navigate that uncertainty of like kind of moving forward towards your, entry-level job goal? And then part 2 would be like, because it's happened to all of us, like when you're stuck, when you're just feeling like just stuck and not sure what to do next, like kind of how did you get through those moments as well?
Yeah, great question, and pleasure to meet you as well, Ryan. So the murky water is actually where you actually learn. When at least personally, right? Like nothing is ever going to be Alice in Wonderland's, golden pathway to Oz. If it were that easy, every single person would be a high-paid, software engineer in the tech company, right? But that murky water, you learn how to, shake the water off your boot and then maybe pull a fish out of there. But you know what? That fish, you can probably eat that fish later day, some later down the road. I know I'm going with the analogies, but sometimes, you know, at least personally, when I was building out the Zoom app, I thought, hey, how could I actually create something to market it with, right? And so I created Zoopedia, which is like a website animal book. Turns out, you know, that's nowhere near my core goal, but it was kind of aligned there. It was like a little bit, it's in the swamp over there. But then I figured out a way to make a channel. And so a little bit of water from that comes to here. It was fun for me because, you know, I personally like animals, and it was kind of like it was a way to get my mind off my core project. So it was like a side project. And eventually when you're working on something and you have an overall bigger goal that you're trying to reach, whether it's the companies, whether it's your personals, everything adds up. You know, it's like Lego blocks. You're trying to build something awesome. And have you ever built out a perfect, you know, Death Star Lego thing? You never do that. It's always like a Frankenstein of different colors and different, you know, pieces that you just make do. And that's the beauty of the journey of it, you know, like, and that's also very unique to how tech works, because you can't do this in various other industries. So if you're going to go to like a car factory and say, hey, I'm going to go put like a blue door on a red car, or I don't know how cars actually made that, but like if you're going to like switch out an engine and stuff, it's going to be like, oh, like that's not how we do things here, you know. But when you're learning and you're in that murky water phase, that's perfectly fine. Another example, when I was converting data, right, we had Oracle databases were a very big problem. They would take significantly more time to convert than any of the other databases, because the SQL is a little bit different in how the databases work. And so I was the new guy, and I was like, I'm not having this. And I just found a tool that converted it from that Oracle database into a Microsoft SQL Server database. And it's very easy for us to work with SQL Server into Postgres, basically. And so that was a murky water, but, you know, I kind of waded into the deep waters, the ocean of the internet, basically. The internet has all the knowledge the world has. And you find a solution and you just give it a shot. And most of the times your manager will let you take that shot. Like he basically said, Hari, you know, it was like a $50 tool, but he's like, yeah, you know, $50 and it saves us like 2 months of effort. So, you know, if you go find a solution and you bring in, you know, you actually have to like kind of propose it, right? Like you have to like put your words behind it and actually show the path through that murky water. Then things kind of clear out in their own way. And if not, you learn how to clear it out yourself. And so that's how I see it. And I also forgot the second part of the question. So if you could remind me, Ryan.
Just I think that experience that we're on when we're on this journey and we just feel stuck and we're like not really sure what to do next. Like, how do you navigate those moments?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I might reference back to what I think Kelia was saying about taking time off. You know, if a lot of the times the solutions, if you are coming to you, one, if you've already gone through it before, that's where experience comes in. So you instantly know what the solution to a problem is. But if you're figuring out something for the first time, a lot of times it's not going to be there if you're just stuck, you know, Googling it or working through your code. It's probably going to come the next day after your mind has gotten the opportunity to process the problem. Or when you're just fresh, you know, when you're first thing in the morning and you're logging in, your mind is mentally more fresh than after lunch. And I personally take siestas because I just can't think after lunch, basically, for like an hour or two. But you know, you kind of have to like step away from the problem, because no problem is ever actually, unless it's like critical server down or something, right? But that's when you have like the seniors actually kind of like fix it up for you. But then how do you get to be a senior? It's through experience. Like that's why people pay more for senior level people, because they've gone through problems and they know how to fix things faster. I think I saw on TikTok the other day, and I know I referenced TikTok because I know most of you guys probably aren't on TikTok. But there's this plumber that had, you know, he charged about like $10,000 to like tighten his wrench or tighten a screw on like a machine somewhere, right? Whereas, and the owner was like, hey, why am I paying you $10,000 to like fix this machine when all I had to do was tighten the screw? Well, you didn't know how to tighten that screw. Like that's the value in a job and an experience. So if you, yeah, Stephen, that YouTube, they probably recycle it, right? So, you know, it's about experience, and that's where, you know, when you're first starting, you're probably looking through that user manual for this giant machine, understanding what components go where to fix whatever, right? You're probably fixing 2 to 3 different things that could fix it. But when you're exceeding your level of experience and you've gone through the trials and tribulations, then you understand what that is. And a lot of times it's just taking the time off to let your mind work. Your mind is your biggest ally, especially in the IT world, the information economy that we live in. You know, like if you're in tech, you're not lifting, you know, packages and stuff, right? So yeah.
All right, thank you so much. So we have time for one more question. So if anyone wants to just unmute themselves and you have like a pressing question, or please just share.
Yeah, I'll go
See
ahead.
Victor's hands up, but just in case, is there anyone who hasn't spoken yet who's interested in? Go ahead. I'm sorry, someone was speaking. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just like with your own talk about how technology is the future, and you know, with the advent of digital assets, the metaverse, when I was reading through your website, one thing that really interested me was your use of a augmented reality engine. So I just want to ask, like, what's the future for that augmented reality, the future for you? Like, do you have any plans to expand outside of Zoptiks?
So we're like a hopscotch away from the actual metaverse, right? But what I believe is that the metaverse, like, have you guys actually tried a VR goggle thing? Like, can you actually put those goggles on more than 10 minutes and actually live? Like, it is so bad. Like, at least Victor, I know you have glasses. I can see your glasses, but like, it is hard. Like, it's great for the first time, but then a lot of people, they just put it on a shelf. It was a fun experience and they don't really want to do it. And that's why we focus on augmented reality, because it's actually, yeah, you get motion sickness. And so, you know, going back to TikTok, there was this guy on TikTok who literally lives there, and he like showers in metaverse, and he like talks and like 24/7. And it's the most odd thing in the world, because it's like, you know, it's like cutting off a piece of humanity a little bit, you know, like we are intrinsically humans. We are not meant to actually sit in front of desks. We are meant to actually be nomadic explorers who are like hunting tigers. You know, like the past life was actually very, very hard for humans up until like 1850. You know, like, you know, there's just all sorts of things that really rapidly evolved in the past 100 to 200 years, but we're still biologically humans. We're not meant for the sedentary kind of lifestyle, and that's kind of why we have this explorer notion. But a big reason why I stick to augmented reality and not trying to go into this metaverse is that I don't want my kids, my customer kids, right? I don't want them stuck in a world where they're not actually living in the world. And with augmented reality, at least ours, it's like you're like portraying outside of the world. Like you're using your phone to do that, and it's like it's an enhancement to the current world that we live in. So where I see this going, right? You know, I think glasses, smart glasses are going to be a big thing. You'll probably hear Google had like their Google Glass come out a couple years ago, and it was not the most fashionable thing. I'm pretty sure Apple was working on theirs, and Apple usually they come out with like chic little things so that people will actually buy them. The Snapchat glasses, where it's like you can take Snapchats. So when I was in school, Snapchat was actually big. Like that was the prime Snapchat years before it became all what it is now. But you know, it's kind of another way to share. But that's where I see the metaverse actually going, and I'm sure, you know, blockchain and crypto and everything, I believe Web3, the internet is still the internet, right? Every single Web3 project you see out there, they're still not that decentralized. You know, they're probably stuck on one server or a couple of servers somewhere on one of the big cloud providers. It's not truly decentralized. And so when people say, oh, decentralize this, decentralize that, It's like, what is the purpose? Like, what does it actually do? What is it that you're actually building? Is it an app? Is it is it a token? Is it a cryptocurrency where it's like tethered to fiat money? That's where I see it. And for blockchain specifically, I would say it's like mostly like document verification and like kind of like signing documents. I think that's where it really heads into. And the metaverse, I think it's a fad for investors to dump money into at the moment. I think unless there's a practical way to implement something, I believe we have a practical solution, kind of like bringing animals into your environment, taking pictures with them, and etc. Then it's just, you have to really understand what the application and purpose and the need for a technology is. And if it's not innovating in a way that actually makes sense, like you guys will see something and it will make sense. And if it doesn't make sense in the first 5 minutes, there's no reason for it. It's just another kind of spin-off. So that's why I believe it, Victor. Take it with a grain of salt because I'm just another guy, right? So yeah.
No, thank you. That was really insightful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Harry. So we have about 3 minutes left, and I wanted you to just leave us with some parting words of wisdom from your journey. So we have about 3 minutes. If you can just give us some closing words about, advice for all of our students here who are going to start their IT journey.
Yeah, so nothing in the world that you want is going to come to you easy. Like you got to put in the effort, you got to put in the work, but you'll see progress, especially in IT. You'll see instant results sometimes. You'll see a bug fixed, you'll see an app being built right in front of your screen, and you'll probably get paid well for it if you can do it for another company. So find your shovels, find people who will teach you how to dig right. And there's companies out there that are digging for gold every single day, and they'll pay you to dig for gold. And eventually you too can dig for, kind of like create an own ecosystem. But do it for the people that you want to do it for. Don't just because it's like I'm sure some of you go into finance, and don't take it the wrong way, right? But if you're align yourself with a mission, and everything else you do in work, it won't really feel like work. You'll still get paid for it pretty well, in fact, but it will just be like, hey, this is my career and not just a job. And that's what you're trying to build, not just a job. Because the job, like for example, contract jobs, you can lose a contract job like this because there's no contractual liability per se. But if you're trying to build a career with the company, you're going to probably want to stick with them for a lot longer. And I know job hopping is the biggest way to increase your revenue, but that's how you build a career sometimes. But stick it out, and you'll definitely see results. If you guys want to keep in touch, LinkedIn, I'm going to be posting on social media more, hopefully, TikTok and Zoptiks, mostly our accounts. But happy to sign up and keep in touch if you guys want. So.
Yes, Hadi, if you can drop your LinkedIn, your TikTok, all your social media. Actually, if you can share it with me via email, and I'll share it with our students on our platform. So I'll
sure.
reach out.
I mean, you can just search my name. It's just Hari Kunduru. Or you can search our company. Like if you scroll down to the bottom of our website, it has everything in there. So you can just click. But yeah, pleasure to meet you guys. Thank you for listening. Honestly, like I know I've just been rambling and talking a lot.
Oh no, it wasn't ramble. It was you drop was it gems, lots of gems.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Enjoy your Friday, guys. Don't be in front of your phone or computer too much. It's nice. It's nice. I'm in North Carolina. It's pretty nice outside. I'm sure New York or wherever you guys are from will be as well. So have a good weekend.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Harry.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Everyone.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, likewise. Have a good one.
All right, so I guess you all will be moving to Mr. Eli's class, so feel free to jump off. Hadi, yes, thank you, Mohammed, for posting Hadi's LinkedIn. So I'll be following up later today with some Slack information about Hadi. You know, this will be a great opportunity to practice your networking skills. Hadi could be a good mentor for some of you who are interested in the pathway that he took. He also is connected to other people. And again, remember what he said, approach respectfully and be persistent, right? So enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, everyone.
All right, do you want to stop recording now?